Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
It's gotten to the point where stories about just attorneys doing bad things are a dime a dozen. Prosecutors doing bad things, dime a dozen. But this story does stand out a little bit. Trocon sent it to me, and it's happening in Michigan, so I've got to talk about this. In Macomb County, a courthouse I spent a lot of time in. And it's from clickondetroit.com, which is the Channel 4 website. That's WDIV, the NBC affiliate in Detroit. Derek Hutchinson wrote the story. And the story is that a former Macomb County prosecutor is going to be on trial. He's been charged with some crimes. And the bad news for him is that one of his aides, somebody who worked with him, has agreed to testify against him as part of a plea deal. So the whole thing is falling apart for him. So according to that man who's going to testify, the former Macomb County prosecutor used drug forfeiture money for parties, gifts for his secretary, and other things that are inappropriate. So this has a few other things we talk a lot about, including drug forfeiture money. And I've said this before, that one of the problems with a drug forfeiture situation or civil asset forfeiture in general is that when you tell law enforcement that if you seize the money, you get to keep it, it incentivizes them to seize money, but it also creates this weird mental thing where, well, it's like found money. We didn't have to work to get it. We just got it. Therefore, you don't have the same moral obligation as to what you're going to do with it. And I'm convinced that one of the reasons you hear about police departments squandering the money is that reason. They didn't have to work for it, so who cares if you buy Super Bowl tickets or popcorn machines or daiquiri makers or gifts for your secretary? Because it was just found money. It's not on the books. It's just money, you know? So in exchange for turning 2 felony charges into 1 misdemeanor, which, by the way, is good if you can get that done, the right-hand man of former Macomb County prosecutor Eric Smith has agreed to testify that Smith took drug forfeiture money that should have gone to the public and instead used it for parties, gifts for secretaries, and more. Now, Derek Miller is the guy we're talking about. He was the chief operating officer of the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office under Smith. And of course, Smith was the prosecutor for Macomb County. That is an elected position. And most of the prosecutor races in southeastern Michigan are very, very high profile. Prosecutor for Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County, those are usually people who are in the news quite a bit. And the contests for, the elections are hotly contested. And so this guy, for a while, was very high profile. And of course, now he's in the news for the wrong reason. So Miller has reached a plea deal that includes testifying against his former boss. According to court documents, he says he's willing to testify that he helped obscure hundreds of thousands of dollars in drug asset forfeiture money so that other entities, such as the Macomb County Treasurer, couldn't get a look at it or keep track of it. So the money comes in, they're supposed to handle it in a certain way, and he says, well, I helped him do things that would kind of disguise where the money was or where it went and so on. Smith is accused of using that money as a personal slush fund. The hundreds of thousands of dollars should have been used for the public good by law, but Smith used it to buy flowers and makeup for secretaries, a security system for his home, parties at country clubs, and more, according to the Michigan Attorney General, who is involved in the prosecution. And that's another thing that happens. I'm sure you're aware of this, but if somebody high-ranking like that gets in trouble, who indeed shall prosecute the prosecutor? And so if you've got a crime being committed in Macomb County, normally the Macomb County prosecutor would be involved. But if he, of course, is the accused, well, someone else has got to come in and handle the prosecution, and quite likely the trial itself would have to be held probably in another county for the same reason. So in return for his testimony, Miller will plead to a misdemeanor charge instead of the 2 felonies he was facing, according to court records. Now, he won't have to serve any jail time if all of this works out according to the deal. So as I'm sure you know, when somebody reaches a deal like this, they talk the prosecutor with their attorney, and they say, look, here's the deal we're going to strike. And then they'll say, okay, you're going to have to testify at his trial, if he goes to trial, you're testifying. And if your testimony, we think it was done in good faith, to the best of your ability, you tell the truth, and you testify, we will, in essence, tell the judge that we think this is what you should get, this deal. But you do have to go in and in good faith testify. Like, you can't get in the stand and suddenly pull the old, I don't recall. So you've got to actually, put some effort into it. So what they often do is they'll put this on the record and then say, but we're going to put everything else on hold, including the sentencing. So Smith has already pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice in a federal case against him for misusing his campaign accounts, but he's now facing embezzlement charges from the state. So the obstruction of justice in the federal case was something he's pleaded guilty to. But this is a state charge being brought by the AG of the state of Michigan. So the campaign finance abuse situation or misuse of campaign funds, that happened a little while ago, but this is the serious thing. So meanwhile, a judge would have to sign off on Miller's plea bargain, his deal. It's unclear whether Smith will reach a plea deal or go to trial. Miller won't be sentenced until Smith's case concludes. So as of right now, you know what's happening behind the scenes. This hit the news yesterday. And the attorney for Smith tells him, okay, dude, here's the situation. Miller's going to testify against you. He's flipped. He's going to testify against you. And he's cut a deal. Now, of course, at trial, when he gets on the stand, you get to cross-examine him all about his deal. Isn't it true that in exchange for your testimony, they're dropping 2 felony counts and you're going to be sentenced for 1 misdemeanor? That's a big incentive, isn't it? But let's face it, everyone knows that's what happens. So they got to go to Smith now and say, Smith, you understand, this is the guy who is going to testify about how it all went down. And if a jury buys his story, you're in a lot of trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. Now, of course, the man, Eric Smith, is a former Macomb County prosecutor. So he understands how all this works also. So obviously, he's not watching my video taking notes. But I'm simply making sure everyone fully understands what's going on here. So the question now is whether or not Smith will insist on going to trial on the charges he's facing, or if he might say, look, guys, I've already pled guilty to the campaign finance issues. Let's plead guilty to something here. We can all avoid a trial. What's the best deal we can cut here? And so that, of course, is always a possibility. The bigger question is, how much money are we talking? Because if you worked out a deal where you said, I'll plead guilty to some things, you dismiss other things, no trial, they're going to say, okay, the question is, do you serve any time in jail? Yes or no? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, do you have to pay any money back? That can be a problem. I'm not sure. There's no dollar figures given in this story. Are we talking $50,000? Hundreds of thousands of dollars? And the question is, has he got that kind of money laying around where he could pay the money back if he had to? So these are all considerations that he will be taking up with his attorney, and we'll see what happens. But I remember when this guy first got elected, and people had a lot of high hopes for him. And there was a few high-profile cases handled by his office that were apparently handled quite well. And then little stories started squeaking out, issues in the Macomb County Prosecutor's office. And then it all went to heck in a handbasket, as they say. So that's what's going on right now. The aide to the prosecutor has agreed to testify against his former boss. And the former boss, former prosecutor Eric Smith, we'll see what he's going to do now as things start lining up against him. So Trocon sent it. Thanks a lot. Derek Hutchinson wrote the story for clickondetroit.com, WDIV Channel 4. And that is Derek Miller agrees to testify against Eric Smith as part of a plea deal. And underlying it is that civil asset forfeiture money. That money comes in and they get to spend it. And he's supposed to spend it for the public good. And he spent it on other stuff. And there you go. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. If you're bad at math, Don't take calculated risks.